Welcome to another episode of Meet the Experts. I'm your host, Jay Vix with JVI Mobile Marketing. What is Meet the Experts? Great question. Glad you asked. It is a video. It's really not even a podcast. I call it the anti-podcast, right? This is a web video series where we give entrepreneurs, thought leaders, executives, anybody with a product or service that they want to get out there in the world, a chance to do it on video. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about you, what makes you special, what makes your products unique, right? Or services. And we give you this platform in a short interview, similar to a podcast, except then we just give you the video and you can use it in all your marketing. So today's episode and all the episodes, this show is sponsored by Journey Builder, which is an all-in-one marketing suite of tools and software wrapped around a customer relationship management system, a CRM, if you will. And Journey Builder is our baby. It is our favorite thing in the world. It is what makes us wake up every morning and go. So if your business needs to consolidate all these tools that are all over the place into one tool, and if your salespeople or your marketing people or just you, if you're a solopreneur, need a better way to manage all these contacts with automations and email and text and tracking and all that fun stuff, we should talk. Speaking of talking, if you would like to be a guest on Meet the Experts, it's free. And if you stick around to the end of this great episode, I will tell you exactly how you can be an upcoming guest on Meet the Experts. All right. With that out of the way, let's talk about Bethany. Bethany's coming up today. Bethany Corbin is a recognized thought leader at the intersection of women's health, law, and technology. And, this is cool, a recipient of the 2023 Champion in Healthcare Award. Through her company FemInnovation, she helps early-stage women's health founders access the resources and partnerships they need to build and scale their companies legally. So, Bethany, hi, how are you?
Hi, Jay. Thanks so much for having me. I'm doing great.
Good. I tried so hard not to butcher that intro. I was like very, very succinctly going through each word. Congratulations on winning the Champion in Healthcare Award.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. It was definitely one of the highlights of this year.
That's awesome. You know, I was having a conversation with somebody before we dive into what you're going to talk about. I was having a conversation with someone recently, and I said, we've won a couple of awards, and to the general so-and-so, it may not be that impressive, but to us, we should celebrate that. We should embrace the awards that we win. I mean, it sounds a lot cooler when you're an award winner, right, for what you do. And I don't think that we... not you, but I don't think in general we embrace and tout those awards, but it's a big compliment. It's a big honor to get these awards. So congratulations on that. I love that.
Thank you. No, I fully agree. We don't brag enough about the awards and accomplishments of our companies and ourselves. And, I think it's something that everyone should be tremendously proud of, even if somebody has never heard of an award before. It's an incredible accomplishment and truly something, that can make you stand out, especially in the marketplace.
Completely. All right. Well, let's get rolling here. Bethany, tell us a little bit more just about you, and before I don't want to get into products and services quite yet, but just a little bit more about you and kind of what you do.
Absolutely. So as you mentioned, Jay, I'm the co-founder and CEO of FemInnovation. And I know we'll talk about the products and services, but just to give you a quick overview, we really work to bring together the entire women's health ecosystem on one platform so that we can revolutionize women's health care. And it's interesting because I am part of what is known as the femtech community, and a lot of people have not heard that term. It actually wasn't coined until 2016. So when you step back and you think about it, when I graduated and went to law school, femtech was not even a thing. And I'm a lawyer by background. And so a lot of people, assume that I went directly from, law school into femtech and became a women's health innovation attorney that way. And it was actually quite a roundabout journey, I have to say. I started my career in financial services and litigation. So the farthest thing from women's healthcare. Absolutely hated it, and really just wanted to pivot and figure out what I was passionate about and how I could merge that with my skill sets in law. And I'm sure, like so many of the listeners out there, I was one of those people who thought I was going to be a doctor whenever I grew up, right? I realized I was actually terrible at math and chemistry and biology, and still very terrible at math. And so I realized that was not what aligned with my skill sets. But I've always been very interested in healthcare. My mom has an incurable illness, and so I've been involved with the healthcare system since I was 8. And so for me, that really seemed to be an area of passion. And there were, I wondered how I could make a difference in that area without having a medical degree, and have since been able to use my JD degree in order to come and really influence the women's healthcare community. So a little bit of background on how I got to where I am.
Yeah, I love that. And I want to dive into your educational background a little bit in a couple of questions. So I love that you kind of touched on a few different things, because it kind of sets up the rest of the episode really nicely. So thank you. So now let's talk about FemInnovation, right? Let's talk about this femtech. What are how do you work with people? What are those services or products look like?
Yeah, it's a great question. So, FemInnovation is really focused, as I mentioned, on bringing together the entire women's ecosystem. And what's interesting is, although there are a couple of other platforms out there and communities in femtech, nobody is focusing on uniting everyone under the same platform and having these conversations together. And so that's really what makes us unique. We are building the first platform. It's actually launching January 2024, where founders, clinicians, investors, scientists, women's health advocates can come together and get the resources that they need to drive lasting change within the women's health community. So for instance, let's say that you're an early stage startup founder in women's healthcare. You want to know some of the legal basics that you should be thinking about, maybe how to form your Delaware C Corp. Maybe you want to get involved with a good marketing agency up front, or you're starting to think about how you're going to divide your shares and the equity amongst co-founders. All of those resources are available through guides, educational lessons, digital courses, document templates that we have on our platform to really guide early and mid-stage founders along their startup journey without them having to shell out tens of thousands of dollars to get that information, or without having to spend hours and hours searching online for it. What also makes us different too, as I mentioned, is we don't want to work just with founders. We want to make sure that founders are getting the connections and the partnerships they need. It's so interesting, Jay, because I can't tell you how many times, I work as an attorney, and I have the first law firm that focuses exclusively on women's health innovators as a separate company. But so many of those clients come to me and they say, Bethany, do you know an investor? Do you know somebody in marketing? Do you know somebody who can help me with fundraising strategy? And I do, and I'm happy to make those introductions. But it got me thinking about, why should somebody need to know somebody to be able to get the resources that they need? And how can we democratize that network? And so that's what we're really trying to do. We have an investor circle on the platform, for instance, where investors are engaged with founders. They come, they do a 10-minute video. They essentially reverse pitch to founders so that founders can make those connections and introductions just through the platform, get the information that they need. We're doing the same on the clinical front. So for clinicians and scientists, there's so many clinicians, even OBGYNs, who don't know about the femtech industry. They've never even heard of it, yet women's health is their industry. So we're working to train clinicians. We have a certificate program that med students and clinicians can go through, learn all about the femtech industry, learn how to work as an advisor in these companies, and come and network with companies that need that clinician input. So we're working, I almost call it matchmaking, right? We're matchmaking people together for business purposes. Similar with scientists, the same type of thing. And then we're also working with healthcare organizations. So one of the key things that we identified is, founders have difficulty getting their products initially adopted, whether it's through a contract or a pilot program with larger healthcare institutions. Yet those larger healthcare institutions may be interested in those products. They just don't know that they're out there, or it's time consuming to go through that entire procurement process. So we offer a service as well where healthcare organizations can come to us and say, you know what, we're looking for a solution in endometriosis, or we're looking for a solution in polycystic ovary syndrome. And we can say, great, we have 20 startup companies in that field on our platform. Let's work with you to get your pitch out there, allow them to submit applications. We'll work with you to vet them, to set up their pitch days, and then we'll help almost quarterback that contract facilitation process. So those are just some of the services that we offer.
No, that's a great list, and I'm glad you kind of broke it down to some of the specific issues that are in women's health that affect women, and kind of being able to connect people together. I find that we end up doing that a lot in our agency, is just that, especially through this show, is that I meet somebody, and then it'll, like, no doubt next week somebody will be like, do you know anybody in this, in like women's health space? And I'll be like, oh, as a matter of fact, so, but so when did FemInnovation get started?
Yeah, so FemInnovation is relatively new. We've just launched this year, and we are a group of 3 very talented and diverse co-founders who have come together with this mission. And it's interesting because we all come from different backgrounds in forming this company. And that actually really helped us to see how siloed the women's health community currently is. So for instance, my co-founder, Kate Arnold, she is an OBGYN, and she works, as a hospitalist. She has in-depth connections with clinicians, and she's able to bring that clinical perspective and see exactly where those gaps are for the clinicians and the healthcare organizations. My other co-founder, Nalina Murthy, is a product engineer who has worked with Fortune 100 companies for over 15 years. And she's able to bring really that product development and design expertise to our community, helping us build this platform, but also to the founders out there who are trying to build their products, and really to help facilitate that design process in a way that's going to make sure that they're capturing the right market share, make sure that they're targeting the exact right type of audience, and really help those companies to grow and expand into the different markets that they're trying to enter. So it's interesting. It's been a relatively short journey, but all of us have been very passionate about this for a good portion of our careers. We're all committed to helping women's health founders and to helping elevate their voices and their experiences. And we want this to grow over time. We want this to be a very trusted community and innovation hub. That's really what we're focused on. And, for that reason, we are all each intimately involved with the company, with every single organization or partner that's on our platform, really looking to drive meaningful change through trusted interactions on the platform.
Cool. So talking about that, about being trusted, about, partnering, right? Every business, and sometimes it's a little tougher on a newer business that's kind of just getting started, but we all do these things, and people have said certain things to us, good things like testimonials or wins that you've gotten for them, right? So I always like to celebrate those things. So, and I always say that those are the things that keep me excited to come to work every day. Do you have any of those testimonials or win at this stage of your business? And you don't have to give names or specifics, but do you have any of those? And can you share a little bit about one of those?
Yeah, absolutely. So our platform is launching in January, but so we are relatively new in that stage for this new offering that we've curated. But all of us have been involved in the femtech industry for several years, and we've all had some great individual wins as part of the services that we provide that we're now merging into the platform. So, for instance, one of my most memorable events is getting to present at an OBGYN grand rounds to a really renowned women's health community and medical school, and really being able to go through and talk about the ethical and the social implications of femtech, how that might be challenging to providers and OBGYNs who are offering that type of care, what we should be looking out for, how we can integrate that data and prevent clinician data overload. And so that was one of one of the most exciting experiences that I had. And really, the feedback that we got afterwards was incredible. So, for instance, I do have one of the quotes because it's one of my favorite testimonials. But one of the professors, who was also a director of the bioethics and health law department where I was speaking, said that she was getting rave review emails in her inbox. She thanked me for such a stimulating talk. She said that there were also members of their gender, sexuality, and women's studies groups who were asking for a reading group to discuss my work. And so that was very powerful to be able to go in and help to educate other accomplished clinicians, right? And people who are at the height of their fields, and be able to show, great, you're doing such great work. Here's something you might not have thought of. And here are some of the gaps that we need to fill. And that really goes towards our mission at FemInnovation, right? Which is connecting those clinicians with these opportunities and making sure that they have a voice in the women's health field. So I will say that that was kind of one of the catalysts, actually, that caused me to team up with Kate and Alina to really drive this project forward. I've also gotten some other great feedback from other presentations, clients that I have served. One of the sweetest clients that I work with, they're building a menopause and longevity platform. I help them with their legal needs, their startup legal needs. They sent me just the most gorgeous box of roses, and basically said that I was an integral part of their team. I was one of their partners. And so that is something that I still have today. They were kind of those forever roses that actually last over a year. So I'm very excited to see the difference that we can make to other founders and other clinicians and medical schools, hospitals going forward to really drive innovation in this field.
Well, that is awesome. Like you are nailing it right now. Keep up the great work. I love that. All right, so I wanna swing back to you did mention some of your actual book experience, right? Your degrees and stuff. So I call this earned it, learned it, improved your authority. So let's just go back and let's dive a little bit deeper into that. So what type of schooling, title, certifications, degrees did it take for you to get to this spot? And maybe specifically within like the female health, femtech side of things.
Yeah, it's a great question, Jay. So I've always been an ambitious overachiever. So whenever I was in high school, I think I earned 30 plus AP credits, went off to college. I went to the University of University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill for my undergrad degree. And I was able to actually finish in 3 years instead of the traditional 4 because of those AP credits. And when I was there, I started, as I mentioned before, on the career path to being a doctor. I then, I realized I was very, very bad at science and math, that was probably not the type of doctor somebody would want treating them. And so I started to think, okay, where do I go from here, right? Where are my passions? What other career opportunities are there? I ended up switching into an international studies major and realizing that I was great at research and writing. And that's a lot of what law school is. And so I said, well, given that, I think I'm going to go and try law school. It's got a lot of critical and strategic thinking, research and writing, advocacy. That seems to be where I might be able to offer some assistance, even in healthcare, potentially in the future. So I went to law school. I ended up with a full ride scholarship to Wake Forest University School of Law. Not to be undone, I did finish in 2.5 years instead of 3 years. So ended up graduating from law school early. And it was interesting because I had never taken a health law class in law school. I was one of those individuals who fell into the traditional trap of going into big law, right? You get those on-campus interviews, you see the paycheck, and you say, yeah, I'm going to spend my summer working at a big law firm. So I came out of law school with a job lined up in Charlotte, working in financial services and litigation. And I really thought that was going to be my career and I would stay there the rest of my life. So I graduated in December early, and I went immediately into a clerkship opportunity with a bankruptcy judge in North Carolina. And at the same time, I had to study for the bar exam. So I ended up working full-time and studying for the bar exam at the same time, took and passed the North Carolina bar, finished my clerkship, and went into my big law field. less than a year into that, I realized that this was absolutely not the type of work that I wanted to do. As I mentioned, I had already had another clerkship lined up with the U.S. Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. So I was already headed to D.C. at that time. And so I left, I went to D.C., and I started to think about what I wanted to do when I came back, because clearly it was not financial services and litigation. And so at that point in time, I had thought, well, maybe healthcare is a good route to pursue because of my passion for it.
Mm.
So it was interesting. I applied for a lot of jobs, and very interesting, right? I had about 4 years of legal experience at that time, and nobody would hire me for a job in healthcare law because I didn't have that healthcare law experience. And I didn't realize at the time how crucial it was to have actual healthcare law experience and how different that was than general litigation experience or other types of laws that you might be dealing with in your career.
Hmm.
So I ended up going to a large law firm at Washington, D.C., but not in their healthcare department. I was in their technology and telecommunications and media group. And it was hysterical because I actually did no work for that group. I went immediately to their healthcare group and I said, hey, if you have any work, please let me know because I'm committed to moving into healthcare. And to show you I'm committed, I have actually signed up and gotten accepted into a healthcare LLM program at Loyola University of Chicago. So I was back to working full time and studying again. I finished my LLM in healthcare law with a certificate in compliance. I went on to get a couple of different healthcare compliance and privacy certifications. I got certified in privacy as well through the IAPP. And so I was able to then work with that healthcare group during my certification and trainings and schooling and really build a knowledge area in the healthcare field. And that was just, I loved it. It was so essential to my future growth and where I wanted to go. And then from there, I ended up moving and transitioning and specializing further into digital health and then women's health.
I think what really just blew my mind as you talked about that. We've done over 80 of these episodes, right? I've been talking to entrepreneurs 2-3 times a week doing episodes. One of the things that I find it happens over and over and over again, and your path was a little different than a lot of the guests that I've had. A lot of the guests I've had, it was like school of hard knocks, no college, but I just went for it because I was fiercely determined and I had a passion for what I'm doing, and it translates, right?
Yeah.
You did this. You've gotten all the book stuff,
Yep.
and you still, because of a passion, forced your way into the field that you wanted to be in because you had a passion for it. So regardless of the route, whether you're paying tuition or you're buying courses, right? Or taking trainings, the passion to go into the field we want to go in makes for the most successful people, and it seems to be the theme that runs deep whenever I ask that question, which is why I continue to ask that question. So kudos to you for just being like, this is where I want to be. I know I'm right here right now, but this is where I want to be, and here's what I'm doing to get there. That's awesome. Oh, that's awesome. All right, cool.
Thank you, Jay. That's so nice of you to say. And truly, I have to say, we were kind of expected, right, whenever we come out of college to have everything figured out. And I
Sure.
just want to say that it's completely fine to pivot and to not know exactly where you're going to end up. Because as I mentioned, right, femtech didn't even exist when I came out of law school or was in my first 2 jobs. It came into the field and the industry after that. And so
Right.
being able and willing to pivot, I think can set you up for tremendous success.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. Look, I'm closer to 50 than I am to 40 at this point, and that hurts to say, first of all, but it's look, it took me 40 years to kind of figure out what direction I wanted to go. So all the pivots and changes and different things I've tried and different things, that's just life. Yeah, I would never expect somebody at 22, 23, 24, 25 to be like, "Yep, this is what I want to do." Like that's really hard. Like and kudos to any, 22, 23, 24, 25-year-old that just knows and goes and does it and is happy for the rest of their life. That wouldn't have been me.
No.
But that's awesome. I've got a couple more questions for you. We're coming up to the end here. I'm gonna slow down and change gears a little bit. I think we've covered what you do a lot, and I will go back to a little more about that in the final question. But just to change gears a little bit, Bethany, if I said just personally or professionally, tell me something you're thankful for, how do you answer that?
Oh, I would hands down say my parents. They have been the most supportive community that I could have ever asked for, especially during all of these different transitions. As I mentioned, right? You go from working in financial services and litigation in Charlotte to then being a clerk in Washington, D.C., to then working in big law in Washington, D.C. One we didn't get to talk about was I actually did have a stint as a law professor, right? So supporting me during that stint when I had to take a salary cut to then supporting me going into a smaller firm with a lower salary to then saying, great, now you're gonna throw away all the security and launch out on your own. So they have been just a tremendous wealth of support and guidance as well, letting me know, here's where things can go wrong, making sure that I have the finances personally to be able to support myself if something does go wrong, and just the general life experience that they have given me. So a huge shout out to them for being such a tremendous part of my life and for that constant encouragement, even when I do things that they know how it might turn out. they've got to do it on my own.
So I got to ask you about that. I'm going to kind of piggyback off that. It wasn't kind of something I thought about asking, but when you said it, it means a lot. And I too, it was with supportive parents. It's like, it's amazing. I feel for people who have rough, family structure. So were your parents in law? Or like, do they understand? Because you said that they kind of understood these pivots you were making. So do they have a similar background?
So it's interesting. So my mom is a physical therapist by background, but she of course had that illness, and that was one of the things that we almost had in common. She had her illness, and then one of the things that propelled me, I'd already had an interest in femtech, but really propelled me to take that leap was I had my own women's health issue. Very unexpectedly, just got diagnosed during an annual exam, and had to navigate the realm of healthcare as a patient instead of as an advocate and as a lawyer. And that was a very challenging time. And it allowed me to understand the challenges that my mom faced as well. And she also, was able to support me during that journey and to understand why I needed to make the leap that I did because of how we both had been patients, right? We both had been subject to a healthcare industry that didn't necessarily advocate for us. So that was really, really special. And then my dad, he is actually a turnaround CEO. So he understands exactly what it means to, have to leave a job every couple of years in order to try to progress up the ladder. And it's interesting. He's been one of the most supportive people in talking to me about stress, right? And how you don't have to go down a defined career path. Because if you look at him, right, you would say, yeah, Bethany, why aren't you a partner at a large law firm, right? That seems to be the traditional path given your parents' history, right? And the environment you grew up in. And it's interesting because he's recognized right off the bat that working at a large law firm as a partner probably isn't the right fit for me, given my interests, right, my passions, how I like to deal with stress, the work-life balance that I like to cultivate. And so he's actually been one of the most supportive figures in helping me find these alternative career paths, but also in helping me to understand and how to run a business from the financial side as well.
I love that. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree. It's great. That's awesome. All right, I've got one more for you. I'm going to shift back to, femtech and FemInnovation. And if anybody's interested in getting a hold of Bethany, I've had the scrolling ticker at the bottom of the screen. Go ahead and email her, bethany@feminnovation.com. I'm sure she will answer any questions you have. But if the question you have is the one I'm about to ask her about, then just watch the video. So everybody gets the same question over and over and over again. All right, that's why frequently asked questions are like a thing on websites, right? I don't need you to go through a list, but is there that one big question since you've been in this role that you've heard over and over again? And I'm going to give you the chance to answer it on video and put it up on your website.
Great question, Jay. I think the one thing that I have heard over and over again from whether you're a founder, whether you're a clinician, whether you're somebody who's just interested is how do I get involved in femtech and how do we actually make femtech have meaningful change for the women's health industry. So kind of a two-parter there. But, the first is I get so many LinkedIn messages and emails from whether they're law students, college students, somebody who's trying to do a career change, asking how they can pivot into the femtech community. And for that, I would say, whenever I first did it, because as I mentioned, right, I wasn't here whenever femtech first started. I was off, doing big law things. The first thing I did was I spent a good year just following different people on LinkedIn, seeing what events there were, what organizations were out there, following them, getting involved, going to webinars, going to networking events, and really familiarizing myself with the key issues so that I could try to figure out where I might contribute something meaningfully. And that took a good year. And I would, I started posting about femtech, just articles that I had found that I thought were interesting. I would read comments from other people who were posting, and that gave me a very good sense of what was happening in femtech, what people were talking about, and then some of the gap areas that I thought, hey, I might be able to contribute here. This is where I can add value. Because for me, while I'm very passionate about femtech, I didn't want to get involved in a saturated industry that, everybody had already taken everything and there wasn't anything valuable I could add. So I'm always about driving value. And then the second part, right, is, how do we make sure that femtech drives meaningful and lasting change in women's health? And had you asked me before last year, when the Dobbs decision came out, I would have said we were on a great trajectory to be doing that just by continuing to promote women's health innovators. Now with the Dobbs decision, I do think that we have lost some trust in the femtech community and industry as consumers, given the lax privacy and security practices that a lot of these companies have and the fear around how women's health data can be used. And so for me, I almost issue a call to action and say, for anybody who's innovating in this space, we've got to step up. We've got to do better. We have to make sure we're not losing trust. We have to make sure that we're putting consumers and patients first. And then the next thing that we need to do is we need to start working with regulators so that we can drive regulation and oversight exactly where it needs to be instead of having it imposed top down. Jay, that's another initiative that we're working on, a bit separate from FemInnovation, but we are actually creating the first women's digital health coalition that will do exactly that and facilitate those conversations with lawmakers and regulators. And then the final thing that we need to do is we've got to be voting with our dollars. So if we're seeing more and more femtech products on the market, we've got to be voting for those products by buying them instead of buying the traditional brand names that we might be familiar with. And if we start to move the needle in those directions, I think we're going to see some lasting change in femtech. I think it's going to be something that isn't just, a fad, right, that comes on for a couple of years and then everyone forgets about it. And so I think we've also, as and my final piece of advice is kind of as consumers, we've got to be the ones demanding this change and demanding better for our healthcare. And I think we can do it.
Absolutely. I agree with that. I think that, I've been a big fan of, know the companies you buy from, and spend your dollars with the ones that you believe in. And sometimes we can't, right? Sometimes we have to spend money with a company that we're like, gosh, I don't like supporting them, but and that's going to happen. And don't beat yourself up. But when you can understand, I think voting with your dollars is really good. A good lesson there. And, but so now by the sounds of it, and we're done here, but, do you sleep?
It's funny you asked that, Jay. One of my prior bosses, before I launched out on my own, said, there must be 4 of you because of how much you're writing and speaking and doing, right? And it's just so funny. I wish there were 4 of me. I can't imagine how much I could get done if there were 4 of me. But yes, I am one of those people who goes to bed around 9 o'clock at night to make sure I get my sleep.
I do that too, and I still feel like there's just not enough hours in the day, but you seem to have it kind of put together, so that's good. Maybe it's a facade. Maybe you're just like, "Rah!" But that's okay. We don't need to bring that out on this show. So
nobody sees the behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Bethany, thank you so much. Stick around backstage. I'll be right with you, but thank you so much for being a guest on Meet the Experts today. All right, that was fun. Bethany had so much to talk about there that I was just getting so sucked into the conversation. I want to go out and buy female health products now, but I don't really need them. So, but if you do, I would encourage you to reach out to Bethany and talk about how you can get involved if that's something you're passionate about. I mean, I can still be passionate about it without needing certain things. But what a cool conversation and what a cool industry. I mean, I love technology. I'm a instead of femtech, I'm a martech guy, right? Like I like marketing technology and knowing all these different things. So to really understand that there are these industries, I always learn something new on my shows, on these episodes. Things I didn't know about. I've learned about new products and new services and entirely new industries from doing this. That I never, there's never a dull moment on these episodes for me. It's, oh, to me, I mean, I'm hoping the guests feel the same way, but I always feel like, wow, this is mind blowing because I didn't know it was there. So this was really cool. I did promise that if you stuck around to the end of that fantastic episode, I would tell you how you can become a guest on Meet the Experts. So if you look at the bottom of the screen here, right there, head on over to www.meettheexpertspodcast.com. That's Meet the Experts, and experts is with an S, meettheexpertspodcast.com. Go read about it. Would love to have you on. It's about a half an hour, 25 minutes, 30 minutes. It doesn't cost you anything. We'd love to let you talk about just the cool things that make you cool, right? And that make you awesome and special and unique, and why your products and services have a place in the world, right? And then we give you that video. We just give you the raw video. Doesn't cost you anything. We're not trying to sell you anything. We do have a paid package if you need us to like do some work for it, like chop it up into a year's worth of social media content. Yeah, we can do that for you. But anyway, we still want you to be a guest, even if that's not for you, or maybe you have your own video editor. Fine. Cool. Well, anyway, we have a whole bunch more episodes coming up. We are loaded with sound checks and recordings, and you'll be seeing live stream after live stream after live stream. Just know that they're mostly pre-recorded at this point. And we're coming up on episode 100, which will be live. Promise. All right. Anyway, can't wait to see you on the next episode.